As school library professionals, we will be called upon to help teachers choose the best research inquiry model for use in their classrooms or schools. It will be necessary for us to help support students as they move through the information search process. Therefore, it will be imperative that we understand a variety of research models as well as the information search process itself, so we may support our students' efforts and advocate for their use in our schools. In this video presentation, I will be covering 3 different inquiry models, examining each for similarities and differences. But before we dive into these individual frameworks, it will be necessary to better understand the information search process, whose major concern is with the experience of students as they work their way through the process of research. The Information Search Process, or ISP, is a term coined in 1985 by Carol Collier-Cluthow and based on data gathered about the research process. The ISP is unique because it understands that information seeking is an emotional as well as an intellectual process. To quote Cluthow, students' thoughts are charged with emotions that influence the actions they take. Librarians will be better prepared to assist students if they can identify where a student is situated in this process. We can do this based in part by a student's emotional experiences as they move through the steps. As demonstrated in this infographic, the ISP is made up of 6 stages, which are named for the tasks accomplished in each stage. Initiation is the stage in which students begin a project. Selection is where they choose a topic. The exploration stage is where students explore the information sources with focus in mind. Formulation determines the focus of their efforts, and collection gathers information with their focus in mind. Presentation is the stage of pulling it all together. And finally, assessment. Although not represented in this image, it is the final stage of the ISP. The emotions a learner experiences while information seeking are just as important as the research itself. For example, during the initiation stage, students might feel uncertain about the expectations of the project and overwhelmed by the task at hand. In the exploration stage, students will often experience the dip, or a drop in confidence right after feeling optimistic. This is usually unexpected and causes students to falter. Librarians and teachers must identify this teachable moment and be prepared to intervene to help them pass this point and on to the next stages. The information search process describes the experiences of information seeking. Cluthow has subsequently developed the Guided Inquiry Design Framework with the ISP in mind, which is just one framework for use in an information search unit. The Guided Inquiry Design Framework was laid out to provide a method for guiding students through the information search process. Without the help of guidance, students will often fall back on what they know, which is the traditional gather and report method. Simply gathering and reporting information leaves out the construction of knowledge, which is one of the goals of guided inquiry. This method provides librarians with an outline for walking students through the ISP and providing guidance at each of the stages. Guided inquiry consists of 7 steps that mirror the 7 steps in the ISP. Step 1, open, is the beginning of inquiry. At this stage, it is important to spark students' interest and develop their curiosity. Step 2, immerse stage, is designed to build background knowledge. This stage is usually completed as a group by watching a video or reading an article together. The goal here is for students to connect with overall ideas and to think about areas they would like to explore more deeply. Step 3, the explore stage, is when students begin to examine information on their own. This is not the point at which they should be collecting information to report on, but rather dip in and look around at the information without getting overwhelmed. This is an important distinction that students should be aware of. Step 4 is identify, and this is the point when students stop researching so they can develop their focus question. The librarian should introduce methods for developing a research question to guide students through this process and help them clarify their own thoughts. In Step 5, gather, students gather information based on a clearly articulated question, choosing the information that is most relevant to what they're focused on. Students are encouraged to grow broad or spend time reading around in the literature, and then to go deep and focus on the resources that are most pertinent to their question. Librarians should demonstrate how to best manage, research, and document what they have learned. Step 6, create and share. In order to communicate what is most important about their research, students must first be able to articulate their ideas. As students have become experts in their topic, they should share their learning and research experience with others. Librarians will guide students in their development and meaningful presentations. And step 7, evaluate. Students should reflect on this process fairly quickly after completion, when it's still fresh in their minds. Librarians will guide students in reflecting on both content and the research process. In guided inquiry, students are ultimately in charge of their own content learning, but are guided through the process by a teacher or librarian. This method is focused on the process rather than the product and takes into account student experiences in the ISP. Guided inquiry design is an approach that can be used for all learners, but might be more suitable for middle and high school age students. A simpler design is often preferred for elementary students as lessons and units tend to be more brief. The Big Six is an inquiry search strategy developed by Eisenberg and Berkowitz. This model is extremely popular for its relative simplicity. It is often used with students who are just beginning to information search. This model is unique in that it does not need to be completed in a linear fashion, but allows for repetitive loops. The Big Six is named for its 6 steps. Task definition. Define the problem and identify information needed to solve the problem. Information seeking strategies. Brainstorm possible sources and select the best. Location and access. Locate sources and find information within them. Use of information. Taking the relevant information from the source. Synthesis. Organizing and presenting information. And evaluation. Reflecting and evaluating on the product. Eisenberg and Berkowitz point out that the Big Six is distinct in its approach because it can also be viewed as a basic set of essential life skills that can be applied to almost any problem. Whether it is school or personal problems, students can follow these steps to find solutions. Because this process is simple and nonlinear approach to inquiry, it can be applied easily in the classroom. Students and librarians are encouraged to use the terminology in their classrooms when describing activities. The Big Six is a fairly simple information research strategy that is centered around the process, whereas the 8 W's of information inquiry is centered around the learner. The 8 W's of information inquiry was a model designed by Annette Lamb in the 1990s. Its focus is on the actions and experiences of the learners, and this has become apparent in Lamb's choice of names. Watching, which requires students to increase awareness of the world around them. Wondering, which asks students to question and brainstorm. Webbing, or searching, directs students to search for items and connect them. Wiggling, or evaluating contents by twisting, turning, and looking for clues. Weaving requires students to organize ideas and analyze information. Wrapping is the stage where learners create so as to convey their ideas to others. Waving is the communication stage where users share their ideas. And wishing is the assessment stage where learners evaluate both the product and the process. This process is student-oriented and fosters independence in learners. It is also flexible and has assessment built into the process. However, it does not take into account the student's experiences, as the ISP does, and can be frustrating for a student. It also does not focus on how the librarian can guide the student through the process. After listening to this brief introduction of 3 inquiry models, as well as the information search process, it is important that school librarians choose the model that is most in alignment with their district's educational goals. But regardless of which inquiry model you favor, it is extremely important to have one in place so you will be able to guide teachers and students as they utilize these methods.